Chapter 3. Private Party. New Orleans, Louisiana, Monday, April 7, 2014, 2 a.m. Madeline's heart started to race. Gently at first as the initial sensations of anxiety filled her body from top to bottom, and then pounded harder and faster when fight-or-flight reflexes dominated her nervous system and the familiar feeling of lightness in her head penetrated her spine and sickened her stomach. When copious amounts of adrenaline discharged from deep inside her abdomen, it froze her ability to breathe and finally tore her from a ghastly nightmare. Jolted awake, screaming, drenched in sweat and frantically sucking air into her lungs, Madeline struggled to regain equilibrium. Panicked by the realism of a dream that had infiltrated her physical body, she couldn't yet remember who or where she was. As the comprehensibility of present-day life washed back into her mind, she sat up in bed and clutched the sterling silver, white crystal St. Benedict rosary hanging around her neck. A gift for her upcoming 30th birthday from the one person who knew she needed it. Her closest friend and mentor, voodoo priestess Heloise. Distressed and alarmed by the hellish nightmare she'd just endured, Madeline threw off her luxurious white Egyptian cotton sheets and down comforter, slid open the top drawer of her champagne finish, antique mirrored nightstand, and pulled out a shiny black Colt 45 semi-automatic handgun. Not a gift, a necessity she never left far out of reach. Disoriented, she looked up at the alarm clock and, realizing the early hour, shook her head disappointedly. Catholic saint and Haitian voodoo protection candles were situated in every corner and lined every shelf, illuminating the bedroom. The soft light from the delicate flames covered everything in the impeccably decorated sanctuary in a warm yellow glow. The only color in the room, besides the whites and polished metals, was the original exposed red brick wall behind the bed, which extended to the 15-foot ceiling. Crucifixes fitted with the St. Benedict devil-chasing metal, known for its power and protection against the entry of evil, hung over every door, including the bathrooms. Madeline slipped out of her king-size bed wearing light pajama pants and a white tank top, as her long, wavy hair fell messily around her broad shoulders. With gun in hand, she walked out of her bedroom, down the long candlelit side hall, and into the parlor. After disarming the security system, she unlocked the front door, looked over the balcony into the courtyard below, and checked up and down the open-air hallway. To her relief, she didn't see or hear anything out of the ordinary, just the familiarly loud sounds of the lively New Orleans French Quarter nightlife. Ever since childhood, Madeline had dreaded the inevitable curse of sleep and the nightmares that accompanied it. And although content with the necessity to live alone, she wanted the comfort and protection she felt from the close proximity to the laughter and enjoyment of others living in the quarter provided. It was never quiet, never stale, and New Orleans police officers constantly patrolled the streets day and night, which was the exact reason she lived there. Once satisfied nothing was amiss outside her home, Madeline locked the door, rearmed the security system, and walked back down the side hall to the kitchen. The rest of her traditional pre-war apartment matched the bedroom in decoration and style, and was also lit by a multitude of 24-hour burning protection candles, and adorned with Catholic crucifixes and voodoo artifacts. With high ceilings, brick walls, ornamental French fireplaces, heavy crown molding, and long, luxurious drapery with old-world charm, it was a choice piece of real estate immaculately decorated with modern art, large framed mirrors, and custom-made neutral-toned furnishings. In the kitchen, Madeline knew exactly what she wanted. It was the same thing she wanted every night. The only source of relief that calmed her nerves and helped her get back to sleep. She opened the freezer, took out a large frosty bottle of Russian vodka, twisted off the cap, lifted it to her lips, and indulged in a long series of seasoned gulps. Afterward, she began her nightly ritual of making a strong drink consisting of 3/4 vodka and some festively colored traditional New Orleans hurricane juices, including passion fruit, orange, lime, simple syrup, and grenadine. She dropped in a few cubes of ice in a blue straw and then climbed the slender spiral staircase leading to her rooftop deck. In the French Quarter, balconies and decks were the most coveted features of the many townhomes and apartments overlooking the bustling streets below. Tenants adorned their beautiful wrought iron railings with as many flowers and plants as they could hold, as displaying a green thumb in the quarter was almost as important as a well-developed collection of Mardi Gras beads. Madeline didn't have a green thumb or a balcony, but she did have a spacious rooftop deck with a splashing fountain and resort-style furniture. And she liked it that way. Nobody could see up, but she could see down. From behind the 2-foot-high brick enclosure topped with a short iron railing, Madeline sat back in her chair gazing out at the downtown skyscrapers and meticulously restored 19th-century buildings surrounding her. The second the liquor hit her veins and calmed her rapidly firing nerves, she finally felt free and fantasized about what it would be like to participate in the festivities below. Now thoroughly enjoying her cocktail in the warm spring air, Madeline couldn't help but remember the excitement she had felt when first arriving in New Orleans 5 years prior. Due to incomprehensible casualties beyond her control, she'd left medical school in Chicago and finished her doctorate in psychiatry at a private New Orleans university. Soon after graduation, New Orleans State Psychiatric Hospital accepted her application for residency in their children's ward, giving her a clean start and a career and life-changing opportunity. However, as hard as she had worked to get in, her boss, Dr. Harold Fields, constantly reminded her that everything worth having in life comes with disadvantages, and unpleasant sacrifices will always have to be made. But Dr. Fields' reminder had been late in delivery. Amid the cruel and unfortunate experiences Madeline had endured over the course of her life, it had been ingrained long ago that personal sacrifice was the only key to survival. A rain cloud burst open in the sky overhead and pleasantly sprinkled Madeline in a light shower. Rain in New Orleans was rarely predicted but rather expected almost daily in the late spring and summer months. Madeline loved the rain and believed it washed away her emotional baggage and distress. To allow herself to feel the cool water on her neck, she tied her long hair into a loose bun on the top of her head, revealing several black ink tattoos written in Aramaic and Hebrew script. She had one covering every major scar on her body. The largest extended halfway down her spine, one covered the outside of her right ribs, another traced the line of her left shoulder, and 3 others were visible on the back side of her right forearm and left and right wrists just below the creases of her palms. Madeline wished she could sit and relish the rain for as long as the passing storm would allow, but she was drunk again, and soon her private rooftop party would fade away into another lost night. Work was now only hours away. Outside Madeline's front door, an eccentric woman relentlessly knocked as hard and loudly as she could with her fist. Not receiving a response, she interchanged pounding with incessantly pressing on the buzzer. Rosette, 55, a heavy-set Creole woman with a thick accent, stood waiting impatiently. Born and raised in New Orleans, she had been a member of a highly regarded housekeeping company that serviced the uptown elite for over 30 years. Working in the French Quarter was new to her and a longer drive than she preferred. She didn't much care for wasting her time sitting in rush-hour traffic or waiting for Madeline to come to the door. "I swear," Rosette said, "if that girl keeps up with this nonsense, she can learn to do her laundry herself." She took out her cell phone and dialed Madeline's number numerous times once again, to no avail. Inside her bedroom, Madeline continued to sleep while the television and disc player still on from the night before continued to replay the menu screen of a movie. Combined with her alarm clock, which had been going off for an hour, the loud buzzing and knocking at the door finally forced her out of comatose and into the day. She fumbled for her phone, pulled it out from under her pillow, and looked to see who was calling. "Great," Madeline grumbled, reaching out and slamming off the alarm clock, which now read 9 a.m. She sat up in bed, severely hungover and disheveled. The romantic date she'd shared with herself on the deck only hours before had left her painfully debilitated once again. Disappointed in herself, she looked over at the empty bottle of vodka sitting on her nightstand next to her gun and a full bottle of water. "Good job, old girl. Way to kill it," she said, picking up the water and downing it completely in one attempt. Now only wearing a tiny pair of black lace boy shorts, she got out of bed, tied on a black satin robe, and headed to the parlor. When Madeline sheepishly opened the front door, Rosette, who was unamused by her tardiness, glared back at her with a look of disapproval and irritation. "I see you've had another late night," Rosette said, stepping into the apartment and closing the door. "Early morning," Madeline replied. It wasn't the first time she was behind schedule, and neither of them expected it to be the last. Rosette was used to working for the older, wealthy, put-together women who lived in Uptown and Old Metairie, not for young resident psychiatrists living in the wild French Quarter who couldn't get their life together. Madeline never understood why Rosette tolerated her behavior, but for reasons she would never know, Rosette always came back. Rosette knew Madeline had a pure heart and had worked for her consistently for over 2 years. She also knew Madeline didn't have any family, at least not any she'd heard of. Madeline never talked about anything personal. Plus, Rosette was a woman who'd spent her entire adulthood working in the private residences of her employers. She knew when to ask questions and when to remain silent and observe strategically. However, even with all of Madeline's shortcomings, Rosette adored her. Having only sons herself, 5 to be exact, Rosette had always longed for a daughter and felt a loving responsibility for Madeline. Rosette wanted to provide Madeline with some sort of outside support, because despite Madeline's age and intelligence, she was uniquely childlike when in the safety of her home. Also, she paid well and didn't have a bunch of messy, spoiled children to navigate around. Rosette could work a whole day in a peaceful environment and then go home early to her sick husband. Still, she always wondered how a young, single woman could make such a mess in only 3 days, especially when she cleaned every Monday and Friday. But that was Madeline, and after a childhood of violent domestic slavery, housework was no longer on her agenda. While Madeline sat at the kitchen table reviewing a stack of patient files and nursing her excruciating headache, Rosette walked over, poured them both some coffee, and sat down beside her. "Listen, my dear," Rosette said. "I understand you're going through a hard time in your life. Even though you never talk about it, your lifestyle speaks more clearly than your words ever could, and I don't know how much longer you can go on living like this." Madeline looked up surprised, feeling ambushed by Rosette's uncharacteristic intrusion. "You have no idea what I'm going through, Rosette," she said, embarrassed. "Nobody does. I'm a grown woman, and the last thing I need or want right now is a lecture from you." "Maybe not, but the road I see you going down is dark and it's dangerous. And a woman in your position surely knows better. All I can say right now is your lucky people don't know what goes on behind these doors." "Not necessarily," Madeline replied. Madeline stood in her large walk-in shower under the hot and steamy water. It felt invigorating as it ran over her toned body, loosening her muscles and recharging the morning. Aside from her recent drinking binges, she'd always maintained healthy eating habits, which wasn't easy to do in a city where the abundance of decadent food and strong drink was the top attraction. But Madeline never went out, and she wasn't a party girl. She only drank at home, alone. While brushing out her hair, Madeline started to struggle with a thick knot in the spot hanging over her breasts. It quickly became a stressful means of frustration, and her mood took an instant shift for the worse. She yanked furiously at the knot as her heart beat faster and her breathing increased in intensity, brushing so hard she scratched her skin deeply as she ripped the comb through her hair. "Matted rat's nest!" she cried as clumps of hair collected in the drain. After finishing her shower, Madeline stood in front of the mirror in a plush white robe. She wiped the condensation off the glass and stared intently into the reflection of her big, dark brown eyes and soft, narrow features, breathing deeply as she calmed down. Ethnic hair care and curl straightening products lined the sink, as well as several bottles of prescription pills. While combing her hair into her signature tight bun, Madeline noticed a light stream of blood slowly trickle from her hairline. She dropped the comb and quickly wiped it away with a white hand towel. Several more streams of blood promptly appeared and dripped profusely from her forehead, splashing onto the white limestone countertops. Her heart pounded loudly and her vision started to blur as she frantically attempted to stop the now gushing blood from saturating her face, body, and robe. As panic turned to low-toned, petrified screams, she ripped off the robe, threw it onto the floor with the bloody hand towel, and ran out of the bathroom. The towel and robe lying on the floor were in reality completely clean without a single trace of blood.